I want to welcome you to Dream Chasers Radio with me, your host, Yaya Diamond. This is the author edition, and I'm so very excited to have my next guest on the show. You know, when I was thinking about my children and they were growing up, because I'm old and my children are old and they have their own kids now. But when I was thinking about it, I was like, what should I do? Guns, violence, stabbings, all those things were going on when I was actually, and they just had started when I was getting ready to go ahead and put my children in a school. And I was like, you know what? I think I want to be a little bit more proactive and not put them in school. So I homeschooled my children. And books like this that have been written by this author are books that I've gravitated to. And not only that, nowadays, a lot of parents are actually doing a lot of extracurricular activities with their children after school to boost them, because college education, go figure, a lot of people just don't want to do it. So my next guest today is an amazing author, and she's all about children. We'll be right back. Don't you go anywhere.
Hello, everybody. I'm Charles White. I got a new single out called Your Hand. Check it out, because I'm here with Yaya.
Welcome back to the show. Oh my gosh, we have Joann Falciani on the show today. She's an author and she's written a book. And I want to tell you guys, it says A Parent's Guide for Educational Success for Their Children. And I want to welcome her to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime. So let's go back. Let's go back to like the part where you began to know what you were supposed to do with your education and with your writings.
I got my inspiration to become an educator from my mother. My mother was the vice principal of our Catholic grammar school, St. Joseph's in Swedesboro, for 30 years. So that was my inspiration. But I was actually a business major as an undergrad and then returned to school to become a teacher. So I have a master's in education. I'm Montessori certified, and currently I am in the reading specialist program. But the way this book came to be is I was trying to get a message out there. So I started a blog just on Facebook, and I wrote several articles that are included in the book. And the first one was choosing the right school. I think it's really key. My background, primarily in education, has been with preschool and kindergarten. So I counseled several parents on how to choose the right school, starting with childcare and elementary. So that's how the first part of the book came to be. And then there's several things that come with that, with choosing the right school and honoring traditions and how to handle when parents get divorced. And so I was giving that advice every day. So I decided to put it together and see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. I want to go back to choosing the right school. You know, what about parents who live in a district where their school is just the one school? Is there other options, or are there other options for them besides the public school that's in their district?
Yes, particularly in my area. I live in Pennsylvania. I always say parents have too many choices, which is a good problem. So they have Catholic schools if you're religious affiliated. They have independent schools. But prior to elementary schools, there are a number of very good preschools and childcare centers. For instance, I worked for several years for Chesterbrook Academy. Chesterbrook Academy offers a very academic program, but they also have summer camp and they're open 7 to 6. So you have to decide as a parent what you're looking for. If you don't need all those hours, then there's several preschools, but you also have to make sure that those preschools are following, and the childcare centers are following the state guidelines with ratios and degreed teachers and staff and curriculum. So those are things that parents look for when they're coming to your school and on a tour.
Right.
So those are the questions you answer all the time. And they're also very concerned about staff turnover. If you have a lot of staff turnover, that's a big red flag And in the childcare industry, that can be a challenge because, as we know, in childcare centers, staff don't get paid a whole lot. So that's a challenge to find quality teachers that are willing to work for the salaries that childcare offers. Because
Yeah,
most
that is, yeah.
childcare centers are for profit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a hard thing. That's a really hard thing. You know, back in the day, we had teachers that actually literally loved to do it. Now it's like you said, it's really hard to find that teacher that is good, that's willing to work for the money that they're offering. You know, because we have great teachers still. We have amazing teachers. They're just not going to be subject to making $18,000 a year. I mean, you can go to McDonald's and make way more. You know, so it is what it is. I
And
understand.
you try to offer for the people with children, you try
Mhm.
to offer a childcare discount, which can be an incentive for them to work there, because the advantage is your children are coming to work with you, which is
Right.
huge.
Hmm. Oh yeah. And then if you really do believe in the actual curriculum, and when you go there, the children are actually getting the optimal education that you would want your child to get. You know, there are charter schools too for people who don't have the money with the vouchers. Am I correct? Is that still going on?
Yes, I actually for 2 years worked for a charter school that pulled from a school district that didn't have a lot of resources. So the charter schools can be an excellent option because they have outstanding curriculum and they also offer meals, 2 meals a day for their children. And they have uniforms, they offer support. So they have reading specialists, learning specialists, speech people. Charter schools are an excellent option for those parents who don't have the resources to send their children to a private independent school, or their public schools aren't, you know,
Right.
as good as some others.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And there are different districts where the schools are not as good because of the funding, because of what they have, or because of the pay, or there could be all kinds of different circumstances going on in that district.
Yeah,
Yeah,
money is the key.
definitely, definitely. I mean, you got to have enough money to actually supply with the books and all the things that are going on, to have, you know, finances, to food and all kinds of different staff and everything. Yeah. And nowadays security.
Yes.
Mhm, mhm.
Like
What about, go ahead.
in the school where I am now, we're lucky. Our police station is about 50 feet from our school.
Oh, that's beautiful.
We have a police presence 95% of the day in our school.
Mhm. Yeah. It's sad to say this. It's sad. A lot of parents are scared to send their children to school because they don't know if they're coming home or if they're going to be on the news. So it's really sad. So a lot of parents are deciding to do homeschooling, and I know your book is going to be the best thing for everyone, whether they're sending them to school, charter schools, private schools, or even homeschools. So for these parents that have decided to actually put their children in, you know, and take their own responsibility on teaching them at home, what do you say to them?
I think it's a great option. I would just make sure that that those children have some kind of social interaction. Uh, and if you research in your area, there are homeschool associations. A good friend of mine homeschooled her children for about 4 or 5 years, but she was part of a homeschool association. So they actually went to a building with other teachers. And there's also a lot of guidelines. My understanding is you have to submit what you're going to teach to the Department of Education. But this book could also be helpful on how to handle holidays, how to handle if you have divorced children.
Mm,
Um, that can be a challenge. The biggest thing for parents who are divorced is they can work together
right.
for the best interest of their children. Like their children should always come first.
Yeah. And this is educational success. So
Right.
educational success on what? Public schools, charter schools, private schools, even homeschool. This is educational success on a very broad area, which is great, which is wonderful. So, I mean, writing this book, and then after you finished, when you went back and you read it, or when you went back over it, how did it make you feel as you know, an educator, to make sure that you've put everything that you could into this book?
it made me feel proud that I was going to be helping parents navigate this educational success for their children, especially for first-time parents. It can be a very daunting experience. How to choose the right school. What do they do about holidays? What do they do about traditions? How do they handle progress reports? How are they, I always say with parents in schools, it has to be a partnership. You can't expect the school to do it all, and we as educators can't expect home to do it all. But if we work together as a community, that's when our children thrive.
Right. What is your passion when it comes to the children and the education of the children today? What is your passion?
My passion is twofold. One, I love teaching reading. I think once you give children the power to read, it opens up a whole new world. To quote one of the parents who sent me an email at the end of the year, I also make my students personally responsible for their things. It is not your mom's homework folder. So when you tell me your mom forgot it, it's not her folder. We have a behavior system where we have tickets, and they get tickets taken away when they forget their folder or their homework. On the flip side, when they help a friend, when they are kind to someone, they'll get a ticket. We had a theme this year. We were all bucket fillers. So we read the book, Have You Filled Your Bucket Today? And they earned tickets. But you have to make children rise to the occasion, and they will. And they become independent, and you watch that as the year goes on. But the same thing needs to happen at home. Everything can't be done for them at home.
Yeah.
It's their responsibility to pack their backpack for the next day.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. I was talking to one of my interviewers, or interviewees, or whatever you want to call it, and we were talking about children that learn pretty fast, and then they become the class clown, or they talk, or they're not cooperative because they finish their work faster than all the other children. What kind of success can we do for those children who learn pretty fast and they're just bored out of their minds for the next, 45 minutes?
Today in education, you call that differentiated instruction. And my class this year made me think of
what was that called again?
differentiated instruction.
Okay.
So you take the children who are above grade level, on grade level, and your struggling students, and you plan activities in a universal lesson plan, which means you identify the barriers before you start planning. So for those children, you may have a longer chapter book in reading, or you may have more critical thinking in math. For your on grade levels, you would do the curriculum, and for your struggling students, you're reinforcing. So you may go back and say, let's talk about the story again. What is the character? What is the setting? What is the plot? Right. How do we sound out these words? In education right now, we're all back to the science of reading and not whole language. So we're concentrating on individual sounds and
phonics.
Right. Oh. Yeah. And there's also another component of phonics it's called phonemic awareness, where you can do it in the dark and you do it auditorily. So you can say to them the word cat and then say, now I'm going to substitute the for an What's my new word? My new word is cut. And then whether they can manipulate the sounds.
Wow. I absolutely love what you've done. You've actually put a lot of different things into this book, and your passion is in this book as well. But the success of the children are of the utmost important. I'm just saying, especially since they're so gullible, so movable and so pliable at that young age. All the way up to, I think they said 7 or 8 years old, they're just learning everything all at once. What kind of advice do you give to parents when they're thinking about putting their children into school, or homeschooling, or private school, or charter? And I mean, those first time parents, those kids are spanking new, they're brilliant. They're like diamonds. And your second kid, you're like,
For those first time parents, I would say definitely do your research. if you're going the independent school route, you want to make sure you have a balance between them developing the whole child and not just the academics. What kind of community service projects are they doing? What kind of independence are they fostering? I mean, utmost is the academics and the curriculum, but you're also developing that whole other side of the child.
Mm, mm,
And so you can look at that. And then I would also have a visiting day for your student. I think that's for your child. I think that's critical to have your child. And most schools do that after the application process.
mhm.
They have children come back and spend the day. So your child gets a feel for where they're going to go to school every day.
Right.
And if they're babies and you're looking at childcare centers, or as they get a little older, preschools, you may, just stop in and say, can I get some information? Can I see your infant room?
Right.
Especially in childcare, you want those parents to feel comfortable about dropping their children off, because those children are there no less than 7-8 hours a day.
Wow.
So you want to make sure your school gives you a report every day. In the infant room, you want when they ate, when they slept, what they ate. As they get older, you want activities. A teacher should never say to a parent, your child's day was fine, because fine doesn't tell you anything.
It doesn't.
My teachers, when I was a preschool principal, my teachers were not allowed to use the word fine.
Yeah, no, I want details as a
Right.
parent, especially, you've seen these crazy videos of the babysitter and the school and the preschool, and then locking the kid up and the kid's dead. I mean, there's all kinds of different things you have to be careful. I do think that I would want to walk through every school. It doesn't matter whether it's public or private or whatever the case may be. I want to walk through, and I want to be able to go there on a spur of a moment to find out what my child is doing. Is that something that parents should be adamant about?
They can stop by. I mean, as a preschool principal, sometimes you're tied up. So it's not that you don't want to show them around, but you might have to be in a classroom so what I used to say is, here's some basic information. Why don't we schedule a tour for you to come back so I can give you the one-on-one attention you deserve?
Mhm. Yeah.
But you can certainly stop by to get information. You just the principal may not always be, or the assistant principal available to give you a tour, but they can at least give you basic information and then say, so when are you available to come back?
Right.
Because
And
you
for
want to
those,
give them the time, especially for
yeah,
first-time parents.
especially. And for those parents who are very involved in their children's education, maybe they want to be a part of a parent, some kind of a extracurricular thing for the parents after school, during the school, whatever, volunteers. I mean, is that suggested as well?
Yes, yes. I mean, it
Oh,
has to be cleared by the principal and the teacher, but
mhm.
I had parents that came in and read this year. Parents will be a chaperone on a field trip. And today you just need to make sure that they have all their clearances
Mhm.
and their fingerprinting and all of
Right.
that.
Yeah.
And that's something parents can be proactive about.
Mhm.
They can get that done before the school year starts. So when they're asked to volunteer, they're not scrambling to get those proper paperwork, because you can't enter a school anymore without
Yeah.
all of those clearances.
No, you can't. You can't. And you shouldn't be able to. Definitely shouldn't be able to.
Now,
Is that also, and I mean, is that also something that will help the child and, promote their education and their success?
I do. I think when parents come, I happen to work for a Catholic school, and my
Mhm.
children were asked to do mass 4 times this year. So they had petitions, readings. And when those children look out and they see their parents, it makes the world of difference
Mm.
that they took the time to come. So I think parents should be involved. It just needs to, you know, the guidelines need to be set about how they can be involved. And I go over that. And I believe it's in the book about back to school night, when you can say, these are the activities that you can sign up for.
Right, right. That is amazing. Well, Joann, thank you so much for being on the show. How can people find your book?
They can do it through Amazon
Awesome.
and Authors Tranquility Press website.
Okay. And don't you have your own website?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, definitely. So I'll put all of that information in the description box below, so that way it'll be easy for people to find it. I think that this is going to be something that a lot of parents need to be involved in, especially since now children are deciding after high school to either go to trade or just start their own business. I mean, this is going to be the success and the foundation by which they can decide what they want to do, and if they do need additional education. So I think that this is very crucial.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to dare to be different. And don't forget to check that information out in the description box below or above before you go ahead for the rest of your day, for real. Because if you have children, or if you're an auntie or a grandparent, it doesn't matter. This is the success of children. Even if you're a foster parent, this is the success of children in general. And we want to make sure that our children, because they are the next generation and the next people to rule this country, in any country that you're from, we need to make sure that their foundation is solid. Thank you guys so much again. And till next time, guys. Bye.
I did to be different. I did.